primary, but Nikki Haley attained 16% of the vote. Are you concerned about that number? And what do you say to those voters?
Well, that's a very small number. All of those people are going to come to me.
Well, former President Trump capturing Indiana's Republican nomination Tuesday. Voters in the Hoosier state going to the polls to cast their ballots in the state's presidential and some state primaries. Trump secured 58 GOP delegates. Nikki Haley won nearly 22% of the vote, despite dropping out in March.
And while all this was happening, they were holding a primary election in Indiana. Obviously, Trump won on the Republican side because he's the only Republican running. But once again, a lot of votes were cast for Nikki Haley, who dropped out 2 months ago. Nikki Haley disappeared at the beginning of the March, and she still took home more than 20% of the vote, which means either a large chunk of Indiana voters are not planning to vote for Trump, or Mike Pence voted 128,000 times.
Another Republican primary, another massive result for non-candidate Nikki Haley? I mean, when Fox and their more extreme, inflammatory cousin Newsmax are sending up flares for help regarding the issue of Nikki Haley voters not voting for Donald Trump, you know it's an issue worth noting.
I think the Nikki Haley factor is real. You look at it, Indiana's a small state. By the way, it's Mike Pence's home state. It's a red state, went for Trump in 2016, went for Trump in 2020, 11 electoral votes, so not a huge number there. But still, if he's missing out on 100,000 votes in a state like that, and then 155,000 in Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago, you can't tell me that he doesn't have a problem with Nikki Haley vote.
As Trump continues to lie about the current administration from the hallways of the courthouse he's forced to sit in as intricate details of his moves are read aloud, the Biden administration continues to deliver for the American people. See the recent fulfillment of promises that Trump made but never kept in Wisconsin.
83,500 total jobs left Wisconsin during my predecessor's term. But that's not on my watch. We're determined to turn it around. Thus far, since we've come to office, we've created, and with the governor's overwhelming leadership, we've created over 178,000 jobs in Wisconsin. We're going to create more here in Racine, and big time.
So, Peter, this new AI Microsoft thing, $3 billion, big job creators. That's in Racine. Isn't that the same town that Foxconn said, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, we're going to build a big plant, and they never did?
Yes, and that was a huge Trump announcement back then, and he said that the factory was going to be the 8th wonder of the world, but then Foxconn decided to really scale back their plans, and the land is still available, so Microsoft is going in.
It's going to be good for those people.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
And the warning signs continue to rear their head for the former president, as former Republican rival Nikki Haley received more than 20% of the vote despite dropping out of the White House race 2 months ago. Trump, of course the presumptive 2024 Republican candidate, easily won the state on Tuesday, securing more than 78% of the vote, which has continued his dominance over the GOP primary. There's no point in denying that. But the former South Carolina governor still registered a huge amount of votes. She received more than 21% of the vote in Indiana, a total that amounted to more than 128,000 votes.
I know who I'm not going to vote for.
Who are you?
I will not vote for Donald Trump. I can't associate myself with the Republican Party under Donald Trump. I agree wholeheartedly. The Trump we're seeing now is a completely different Trump than Trump of 2016 and even 2020. He's running a campaign strictly for revenge. I think he poses a clear threat to our democracy, our institution.
You had voted for Trump in the past, though.
Yes.
What was it that turned you away?
2016 Trump, 2020 Trump, 2024 Trump are very different people.
What's different about 2024 Trump?
A lot of people that have worked for him in the past say they won't come back. Obviously, January 6th happened. A lot of indictments have happened. And to be honest with you, I don't know that he wants my vote. Or those of us that supported Nikki Haley has been pretty clear.
Anything but Trump. That was your priority. That's my priority. Is that the biggest reason you supported Nikki Haley? Yeah, I'd say.
Because of Donald Trump?
Yes, yeah.
I would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump in a heartbeat.
I am.
What do you do in that event if he is the nominee and he and Joe Biden? What do you do?
I vote for Joe Biden.
Hi, Nikki Haley.
I think Donald Trump is a threat to the well-being of our country.
She drops out. Would you be disappointed if she endorsed Trump?
She does. I'll vote Democrat. That's all there is to it.
It's important to me
to keep Trump out of office again. Project 2025, I've read it, I've studied it. It's scary, it's frightening.
I've lived in a constitutional democracy all my life. I want to remain that way, and I want my grandchildren to grow up in one, not a dictatorship.
And I'm curious, over the last two elections, have you voted Trump in the past? Was it something where you voted for him, you trusted him, and you were disappointed?
Yes, I voted for him in 2016. I am a registered Republican, and I regretted that vote almost immediately.
Now let's just take that for a second. Imagine this was a Democratic challenger. Not even one that's dropped out, by the way, but just someone that's posing a challenge to Joe Biden who registered that amount of votes. Can you imagine the endless stories on this on Fox News, discussing how it is indicative of a president who can't even unify his own party? I mean, just imagine the New York Times headlines about how this is a representation of his inability to ascend stairs. So why are more people not talking about this? It's obviously more of an issue than Trump likes to pretend it is. So much so that Fox and Newsmax are giving the story oxygen.
You've talked about trying to unify the party. How do you bring these Nikki Haley voters, some of whom voted for you in 2020 but say they don't want to now?
Oh, they'll all vote for me.
How do you bring them back into the
They can all vote for me again. They can all vote for me again, everybody.
Donald Trump and President Biden clinching their respective primaries in a key battleground state. Biden took more than 90% of the Democratic vote in Pennsylvania's closed primary. But the surprise of the night came from the GOP race. There were still more than 100,000 voters casting their ballots for former candidate Nikki Haley. Now, you might remember she suspended her campaign last month after ballots had been printed.
Speaking of a protest vote, Stuart, Nikki Haley received 16% of the vote yesterday. About 150,000 people voted for her. And that isn't interesting because she dropped out about 2 months ago. So look, if former President Trump is going to win Pennsylvania, it's going to have to coalesce the Republican Party here in Pennsylvania.
Well, former President Trump capturing Indiana's Republican nomination Tuesday. Voters in the Hoosier state going to the polls to cast their ballots in the state's presidential and some state primaries. Trump secured 58 GOP delegates. Nikki Haley won nearly 22% of the vote, despite dropping out in March.
Contextually, yes, Trump has already secured enough delegates to clinch the 2024 Republican presidential nomination after victories in Georgia, Mississippi, and Washington state. However, it is apparent that the president is struggling to unify the party outside of his MAGA contingent, including moderate voters who are vital if he is to stand any chance in November. But what we're seeing now with swaths of Republicans voting for a candidate who has already dropped out is that it's creating a trend. Tuesday's results in Indiana follow a similar story to the recent GOP primary in the key swing state of Pennsylvania, where Haley, seen by most voters as a more moderate Republican candidate, received more than 158,000 votes, which made up 16.6% of the total voters, all while despite dropping out of the race back in March.
Former President Trump easily won the state's primary. However, Nikki Haley, who you know suspended her campaign, still got more than 156,000 votes, nearly 17% among Republicans.
But clearly Trump has still got a Nikki Haley problem. Why hasn't Haley come out and actually endorsed Trump yet?
I would disagree with you on that, Rob. I don't think there's a alleged Nikki Haley problem. Again, a lot of these
I'm just basing that on what we saw in Pennsylvania. 17% is a significant percentage of the vote in Pennsylvania for Nikki Haley.
But there are millions and millions of people, more than 100 million people, who will vote on November the 5th, and they will determine the election. And there's 6 months to go. Yeah. And there's a great case to be made about why they should vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. And the story that the media, unfortunately, is not covering is that uncontested vote in Pennsylvania. The fact that Joe Biden's base is the one that is actually very fractured. You see these Palestinian protests erupting on college campuses across the country. Jewish Americans are rightfully upset with how Biden has handled the war in Israel. You see African Americans moving towards President Trump by historic margins that we've never seen for a Republican candidate before. He's winning Hispanic Americans right
Caroline,
now.
Just quickly, would Trump accept, because 80,000 votes is what decided Biden and Trump in Pennsylvania in 2020. It was 46,000 with Hillary Clinton in 2016. Would Trump accept the Haley endorsement? Just about 15 seconds.
I'll let the president speak on that himself. But our team is focused on bringing in voters of all stripes, Republicans, independents, disillusioned Democrats. If you want to make this country great again, stop Joe Biden's destruction, then you have to join Team Trump.
But the thing is, if you were to ask Donald, there's more of a chance he'll actually attend his son's high school graduation than admit that this is a problem for his presidential campaign.
You've talked about trying to unify the party. How do you bring these Nikki Haley voters, some of whom voted
for you in 2020, but say they don't want to now.
Oh, they'll all vote for me.
How do you
again.
bring them back into the
They're going to all vote for me again. They're going to all vote for me again, everybody. And I'm not sure we need too many.
Nikki Haley attained 16% of the vote. Are you concerned about that number? And what do you say to those voters?
And she got 16%. I got a record number. I got the highest vote ever attained in the state. And all of those people are going to come to me because first of all, what's their choice? Biden, he's the worst president in the history of our country. They're all coming to me. We see it already. They're all coming to me.
How does it go again? That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Let's see if it pays off for them.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.